When the world's shut down, it has been a bit of a struggle for us to get back to where we were. But I think what we want to do today is to showcase Sri Lanka not just as a center for tourism, but a center for culture, art, heritage, and an overall good place. And tonight, we have with us distinguished guests, the Minister of Tourism, who's going to, of course, address you very shortly. We are rich in tradition, and with the traditional drummers here, we want to herald tonight and begin tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the lamp you see in front of me, with the brass lamp with its intricate designs. Now, before every event in Sri Lanka, which is of significance, we light it. And it's interesting because when people are getting married, they'll light it. When they're about to start a business, they'll light it. Sometimes when you purchase a new home, religious places of gathering, you light the lamp because the lamp gives you light. And light takes you out of darkness. And with that, we create hope. And for over 2,500 years, when we've started things, we've always lit the lamp. Because we start things with a blessing. We start things with a hope. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, to light the lamp, I'd like to invite the Honourable Minister of Tourism and Lands in Sri Lanka, who's graced us tonight, Mr. Harin Fernando, the Sri Lankan Consulate General in Melbourne, Mr. Sandit Samarasinghe, the Consul General of New Zealand, Ms. Bella Katz, Mr. Jason Warne, Chairman, Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Mr. Charlika Gajabahu, Chairman, Sri Lanka Aviation Group, Private Limited, Mr. Dilan Aryawansa, Country Manager, Sri Lankan Airlines, Mr. S.P. Mohan, Consul Commercial, Ms. Ruanti Aryaratna, Assistant Director, Marketing, Ms. Charmi Lanka Gasnawage. If you can, please come forward to light the lamp for us to begin tonight's events. Thank you very much. Not too sure if you listen to the drum beat, but that is very particular for this event. So that's a welcoming drum beat. If you get the chance, you could check out something called Drums of Sri Lanka, which is different drums for different events. And this is particularly one for welcoming. You know, in Sri Lanka we say Ayubowan, and I want to start by saying Ayubowan. Ayu means life, Bowan means may it be many, not many lives, but may your life be extended. That's the wish you want to start. So for tonight, Ayubowan. This event's been put together by Sri Lanka Tourism with the Consulate General of Sri Lanka in Melbourne. And this travel agents and tour operators networking session is to create awareness about Sri Lanka tourism and, of course, to announce that Sri Lanka is welcoming international tourists after the pandemic. Tonight, we're going to hear from the distinguished guests. We are also going to see a dance item, but also before we begin, I want to start off with a video presentation on Sri Lanka tourism. This video is titled Ayubowan and is one of the general Sri Lanka tourism promotion videos. It puts together highlights of visiting Sri Lanka in one short video.
Ayubowan, wishing you long life. Sri Lanka has over 2,000 years of a trading history with major powers around the world. It is today an important strategic partner for Europe and the rest of the world, presenting significant trade and investment opportunities in tourism, exports, services, and education. Sri Lanka is gaining vast global recognition as it continues to emerge as one of the world's best tourist destinations, with accolades from various travel guides, travel magazines, and travel websites. With many UNESCO heritage sites, beaches, wildlife parks, and hill country resorts bottled up into a small space, Sri Lanka is undoubtedly one of the best holiday destinations waiting to be discovered and celebrated. Our island is blessed with many unique experiences. Many who set foot on the island had considered it a part of a divine existence. Our Ayurvedic retreats, meditation and natural wonders continues to heal the bodies and minds worn out with the cares of life. Spoil yourself in luxury star-class hotels, heritage bungalows, or boutique hotels located around the island. Work remotely with a beautiful working backdrop of lush green mountains, coral reefs, or powdery sand. Dwell in nature's cradle as you experience 3 of the finest 18-hole golf courses in Asia, or take part in international sporting festivals around the island. Acclaimed author Arthur C. Clarke once said, "The island of Sri Lanka was a small universe and contained as many variations of culture, scenery and climate as some countries 12 times its size." Ever since the 1950s glory days of the silver screen, film producers and directors such as Don Boyd and Steven Spielberg have raved about how beauty, light and variety of the island of Sri Lanka make it a perfect outdoor film set. The island of Sri Lanka has also been the choice for a string of Hollywood A-listers who have visited this little wonder for travel and leisure. The island has 5 international airports and 9 domestic airports, giving air travelers a range of options for efficient connectivity. Sri Lanka is diverse, compact and authentic, and has the highest density of waterfalls, plenty of water bodies and rivers. 33% of the island is forest, which includes 26 national parks. Sri Lanka, the nature's treasure chest, is home to one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Its prehistory consists of planned cities, magnificent palaces, and expansive man-made reservoirs, stunning temples and monasteries, green gardens, and hard-to-believe monuments and works of art. With nearly 1,600 kilometers of palm-fringed coastline built to perfection surrounding the country, Sri Lanka is the ideal destination for beach bums worldwide. Each day on this island promises new experiences, discoveries, and lifelong memories, perfect for the post-COVID bucket list paradise. Each place and each smile in Sri Lanka has a story to tell. We have so much to share with you. So come along to our island in paradise. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka.
If you can capture everything in a 4-minute video. That's what Sri Lanka is. But it's much, much more than a 4-minute video. That's not even a taster of what it is. You saw Arthur C. Clarke there. And interestingly, when he came to Sri Lanka first, and you saw the coral reefs just before that, the connection's amazing. He came to Sri Lanka as a diver with his cameraman, Willie Blake, from England. And then he found a treasure. The treasure belonged to the son of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. The ship sunk off the coast of Sri Lanka, and Arthur C. Clarke found it. So now he wanted money to salvage it. So what did he do? He produced a movie. Many Sri Lankans here have heard of the movie called Run Muthu Dua. Run means gold, Muthu means pearls. So the island of gold and pearls. Sri Lanka's first colour movie was thus produced in 1962, if I'm not mistaken, by Arthur C. Clarke. And he fell in love with the island, and he stayed till the day he passed, becoming an honourable Sri Lankan. That's just one of them. And many more have visited the shows, been enchanted, and then thus remained or continue to return to the island. And tonight, it's a showcase of what we have to offer to Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, traditional dances of Sri Lanka, depicting the Sri Lankan culture, highlighting Sri Lanka's colour and heritage, also showing to you that we are much more with our culture and our heritage. Pravaha Dance Academy, they put this together, ladies and gentlemen, tonight for you. the Pravaha Dance Academy presenting that for us. Now, before the first speech, the next video is going to showcase Sri Lanka as our recovery from the pandemic and economic crisis unfolds. It also has a few highlights specific to Australia, including the cricket tour of Australia in Sri Lanka during the crisis.
Our history isn't in the past. Our history isn't in the past. Our heritage isn't our better times. Our culture isn't done being defined. It's in the air. It's in the earth. It's in the waters. As it has been for thousands of years, as it still is this morning. Sri Lanka isn't a place, it's a marvel, a brave new world that wasn't made by the rules. She's a rebel of nature. She's a blessing of imagination, of untold innovation and resilience. Let's tell the story of Sri Lanka with the same courage this island was born of. It's in how we love, how we believe, how we protect, how we share, how we feast, and how we heal. As we dismiss strangers by making them friends. Because that stuff of stars that is beneath our feet, the brilliance that makes the monsoon waltz around lush hills and save itself to soothe scorched plains. The wonder that makes the salty seas nurture jungles of pure paradise. And the wild beauty that stays fierce and vibrant even as time tries to quieten it is in us. And now it's time to show the world Sri Lanka as it has always been, but never been realized before.
Ladies and gentlemen, to address the gathering with the welcoming remarks, I would now like to invite the Consul General for Sri Lanka to Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania, Mr. Sandit Samarasinghe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the voluntary Voingwarang people of the Kulin Nation, traditional owners of the land we gather today, and paying my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here gathered today. It's my pleasure to welcome you all for this great event, and it's an honor, Honourable Minister for Tourism and Land, Mr. Harin Fernando. It's an honor to have you here with us and your team, especially Mr. Chalaka Gajabahu, Chairman, Sri Lanka Tourism Bureau, and my friend, and who have been really supportive to us, Ms. Blair Katz, Consul General for New Zealand, and Mr. Varnan Ganesh, Senior Advisor to the Premier, Mr. Neil Hay, Victoria Rugby, and Mr. Jason Vaughan, Mr. Anik Mishra, General Manager, Strategy and Customer Experience Cricket Australia, Mr. Toby William, General Manager, Consumer Business Cricket Victoria, Mr. Keith Thompson, Secretary, Victorian County Cricket, Mr. S.P. Mohan, Manager, Sri Lankan Airline, Australia and New Zealand, Mr. Dilan Aryavansa, Chairman, Sri Lanka Aviation Group, Private Limited, the representatives of tour companies, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Minister, It's an honor to have you here again. And then I would like to reminisce a bit, because about 8 months ago, Sri Lanka was in dire straits soon after the pandemic. Then when we were facing the financial crisis, when our president, Mr. Wickremesinghe, took up the challenge to take the country forward, Honorable Mr. Harin Fernando took up a very hard task and took up this Ministry for Tourism and Land. And at that time, we didn't have any resources. We didn't have any tourism. We were thriving on tourism before the crisis, but challenges were hard, but he took it over, and it has been very fruitful. We have our numbers. When we look at our tourist numbers who are arriving in Sri Lanka, it has gone up. And it's going up every month, it is going up. The numbers are going up. And then when it comes to the Australian context, last year, in 2022, for the whole year, we had Australians going to Sri Lanka, 30,000 Australian tourists going to Sri Lanka. But for the past 6 months, we have had 26,000 tourists heading to Sri Lanka this year. So I think it will be more now with your work. And of course, as the Consul General and the Consulate of Melbourne, we will support your endeavors here. And I especially would like to thank everybody who's here, who are supportive of Sri Lanka. And we have people not only from the tour industry, but from different facets. And especially from Rugby Victoria. Then, of course, Cricket Australia. Cricket is one of our main sports. And, of course, there's tourism around it. And Mr. Vaughan is here. He was there, I think, a few months ago. And he has been very supportive with the sport. And, of course, Cricket Australia also is supporting us, and that will drive tourism towards Sri Lanka. Then rugby, we can't forget rugby. And I think rugby is our Honourable Minister's sport too. He represented his school and played for a club. And so Rugby Victoria and Rebels, they are supporting us and to drive, make partnerships and to take support us in our endeavors in tourism. And of course, the other partners who are here, especially the tour operators, tour companies, they have been very supportive. And I can remember when I took over this position in December, there were so many negativities around, especially in the media. People were saying not to go to Sri Lanka. And we managed to turn it around and get people to go to Sri Lanka. Now it's to build up. I know there's a plan for a road show in October. And Honourable Minister and his team has planned a road show around Australia, and we'll be supporting the High Commission in Canberra and the Consulate General here. We will be supporting the program, and I would love if you can assist us and support, give your fullest support, and to make it a success. And again, thank you so much for your time, Honourable Harin and your team, who have spent, I think, about nearly 2 weeks in Australia, started from Perth, then to Sydney, now in Melbourne, Victoria, to promote tourism. And we will give our utmost support to promote Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is thriving. Sri Lanka is moving forward in different facets. In investments, people want to invest. People want to invest in tourism projects, climate change projects. So country is moving forward. So please come with us for this journey. And it will be a very successful journey. Thank you.
The Consul General for Sri Lanka to Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania, Mr. Sandit Samarasinha. Thank you. I didn't even know this was a word, but apparently it's creeped into, and it's a verb. It's called Instagrammable. Apparently, that is a verb, and Sri Lanka is one of the most Instagrammable places in the world according to certain travel media outlets, based on hashtags, views, and visual popularity on social media. Short video, so people can share their experiences being in one of the most Instagrammable places. Sri Lanka in a nutshell. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Mr. Charlika Gajabaho, to address the gathering.
Ayubowan and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Minister for Tourism and Lands, our Consular General, Mr. Siddharth Samarasinghe, Ms. Bella Katz, Consul General for New Zealand, Mr. Dylan Aryasinghe, and our friend Jason Vaughan. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for gracing this occasion. I just want to start with Jason. I think Jason spent a good week with us in Galle, I think exactly about 11 months ago, when the Australian, pretty much 12 months back. He came during a time where Sri Lanka was going through a crisis. Sri Lanka, he saw petrol queues, he saw medicine queues, he saw food queues. Am I right? Correct. But you're going to come now, tomorrow with us, to Sri Lanka. You're not going to see it again, ever. Right? So that's Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a very resilient nation. We wake up, we fight, and we go strong. When Australia team came to Sri Lanka, I don't know how many of you saw. I think I'm sure my Sri Lankan friends saw it. At the Kettarama Stadium, there were 40,000 people, all Sri Lankans. 99% Sri Lankans wore the yellow jersey, wearing the Australian flag. That's how Sri Lanka is, and that's how thankful and warm Sri Lanka is. I'm on behalf of 22 million beautiful people, beautiful hearts, and beautiful warm hearts. Again, please, we need to take this message forward for the rest of the world as well. This is our, I think, 6th or 7th stop revitalizing Sri Lanka tourism and to take it forward. As you saw before, we played a few videos. You spoke about Arthur C. Clarke, and I will talk about one gentleman, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Harrison Ford spent 40 days in Sri Lanka in 1979. Do anyone, if you know why they did that? Any guesses? Any guesses? Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Doom was shot in Sri Lanka, right? And Steven Spielberg said Sri Lanka is a studio. And my our brief to the agency when we are going to go for the new campaign, create the blueprint for the next 15 years, we are an all-in-one capsule minus the snow. We don't have the snow. We are 365 days of the summer, wherever you go. That's Sri Lanka. He said you can get to the hottest place and the coldest place in a matter of hours. That's the beauty about Sri Lanka. Yes, of course, in the other Asian countries you can do that. But Sri Lanka is a pearl. Most of the world, whether we go to Europe, maybe even in Australia, people think we are only sun and sea. That's Maldives. Sri Lanka is more than that. We have much, much more to offer. So going forward, we need to create that. My task is to market Sri Lanka, to create that proper DNA, to take the country forward. We have so many categories that we have to offer, whether it's wellness, whether it's adventure, whether it's romance, whether it's culture, whether it's religion, the tea trails. There's so much that Sri Lanka can offer, whichever category that you want to think of. One example is the EU-funded program that we are going to do with Pico Trail. You'll see those videos in a little while. Again, I want to reiterate the fact we are an all-in-one capsule. We are going to go way forward. The 22 million warm hearts, we are very hospitable, and please come and experience. I know all the Sri Lankans here, obviously, from Sri Lanka. Anyone who has not been to Sri Lanka so far? Quite a few. Now, after seeing these videos, you're going to come there? Not only the videos, the experience, yes? Okay, thank you very much. Hope to see you soon in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Mr. Charlika Gajabrahu, the chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau. I picked up something on his speech when he spoke about Indiana Jones and Chandran Ratnam. I had a good fortune of talking to Mr. Ratnam, who was the more like the Sri Lankan producer of the event. And Steven Spielberg was visiting India at that time, location hunting, and he couldn't find a suitable place. So Mr. Ratnam said, come to Sri Lanka. Took him in a helicopter around Sri Lanka, and immediately Spielberg spotted a place. And it's interesting because if you were to go, when you go home, go on YouTube and take a look at that little clip where on Temple of Doom, Indy comes to this village. For any one of you who's, of course, watched the movie, he comes to this village and he meets the villagers. And they say, our children have been taken away to this temple by this, devil of a priest. They speak in Sinhalese. Harrison Ford says, oh, that's Hindi. They're saying, this is what they're saying in Hindi. In actual fact, they're speaking in Sinhalese. A couple of very famous actors, most of them has passed away. There's one lady who'll come with her hands up. She's, I think, 94, 95 years now, Irangani Sarah Singha. Very well-educated lady. My first interview on radio when I used to live in Sri Lanka, I had to take a dictionary to understand half the words she said in English. She was one of the actresses there as well. So Sri Lanka is a place far bigger than what our imagination can capture, only if you could experience. And I feel grateful that I was born there. And today, it's an opportunity for all of you who haven't visited there to know what you're missing. Now, when I was growing up, I used to look at the Reader's Digests. And they used to, when you flip the page on the back end of it, they used to advertise airlines. And there was one time that I looked at these ladies clad in what we called, in Sinhalese, it's the Osiriya. So Sri Lanka, we have what we call the upcountry attire, which is from the, high end of the hills of Sri Lanka, and the southern part. The southern part's more closer to how the sari is draped in the subcontinent. But in the hill country, they're a little special. And they like to be that way. Anyone here who's from Kandy or the surrounds will know what I'm talking about. And they wore the Osiriya, and that is what most, I think, the uniform of Sri Lankan Airlines was, or I'm uncertain if it's still the same. And I remember looking at these ladies in their uniforms, this green saris with peacock feathers on it, and I used to be enchanted by it. And I remember one day thinking, as a young child, I would have been 7 or 8 years old, thinking, someday I want to fly in that airline. Got a short video now to show you that Sri Lankan Airlines, we're known as one of the most hospitable airlines in the skies. You'll be greeted by warm, friendly crews with the famous Sri Lankan welcoming smiles. And if you haven't noticed that already, this is what it is, the welcoming smile. where you will enjoy top-class facilities and service on the ground and in the air. It's now flying daily out of Melbourne and 3 times a week from Sydney. Take a journey with Sri Lankan Airlines and see what they have to offer. And think about that 7-year-old who thought about wanting to fly this airline one day. You should too.
There's a beautiful maiden, suddenly you see her. Your heart starts beating, you like to get to know her. She'll take hold of your heart, you'll never want to leave her. Leave her blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. Shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. Take a ride, go up into the mountains. Smiling people, lush green gardens. Then go down to the sea and take a look around you, and you'll see blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. Blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. And you'll see blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. And you'll see blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise. Blue waters, shining eyes, Sri Lanka paradise.
Bringing the world to Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka to the world. Sri Lankan Airlines, always a pleasure. His brother was known around the world as a world-famous cricketer, but in Sri Lanka, we also knew him as a stellar human being. We remember the time when Sri Lanka was struck down by tsunami. He was one of the first to come and help. And today, carrying that legacy forward and carving his own legacy, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jason Vaughan, to share with us his experiences in Sri Lanka. He's the brother of Mr. Shane Vaughan.
Good evening, everyone. I feel pretty proud to be able to get up here and speak about such a wonderful place. I think one of the biggest assets Sri Lanka has are its people. I experienced their warmth and hospitality at one of their darkest times, and it was amazing too. I don't think there's many places in the world that could have 5,000 to 10,000 people queued up waiting for petrol for 4 or 5 days, and to be no violence, no angst, just everyone working together to try and help each other get through it, and come out the other side and try and help Sri Lanka get back to where it should be. And it's so pleasing to hear that you're well on that way. Before I went to Sri Lanka, I had preconceived ideas that, it's probably going to be a bit like India, pretty busy in the cities and pretty dry everywhere else, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I've been fortunate to go to Bali and Fiji for holidays, but Having been to Sri Lanka, 100%, I'd definitely be going there instead of anywhere else. It's the people there, the people, the culture, the beauty of the place, the history. It's you're seeing a lot of all the natural beauty that it has, but to also have a place like the Gaul Fort, which is it's just a special place to be able to go down there and wander the cobblestone streets and see so much history and have so many beautiful bars and restaurants on offer. It really does just offer you the full gambit of a holiday. It's not, as Chalaka said earlier, it's you're ticking all the boxes. You're not picking a holiday just for the beach or just to go and see the amazing elephants or to see history. You can combine it all in one trip, and I feel very lucky to have been able to go over there and experience it. So hopefully those few of you that haven't been there, take the plunge and get there, and take your families. You'll have a ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. It's been a challenge to come to where we are today from where we were a couple of years ago. But Sri Lanka is a very resilient nation. We had, it's no secret that we had a couple of decades of conflict, but we didn't stand still. We still evolved, we still grew. As soon as, we were seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, we were struck by the tsunami. That's all right. Pick up the pieces, have that bright smile, kept going. A few years down the line, we were hit by a pandemic. Here we are again, doing what we know best, putting on a cuppa of warm Sri Lankan tea, have that smile up, and rebuilding our nation. So to each and every one of you who's been part and parcel of that, thank you. And for each and every one of you who wants to be part of it, wants to experience Sri Lanka, today is the night. The next one shows us some of our experiences of Sri Lanka tourism journey, overcoming some of these challenges that we've faced. the A to Z of our recovery so far, if you didn't notice. Ladies and gentlemen, with us today is the Honourable Minister for Tourism and Lands, but also in Sri Lankan, the Sri Lankan political sphere, a young visionary. To address you tonight, the Honourable Minister for Tourism and Lands in Sri Lanka, Mr. Harin Fernando.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me say, I want to hear you all say Aiboan, Aiboan. So that's wishing you a long life, so let us wish you other long life. Consulate General, my former colleague, and one of my very close friends, Sandeep Samarasinghe. Consul General for New Zealand, Ms. Bella Katz. Jason Vaughan, thank you for those lovely words and thank you for being here. Chairman, Tourism Promotion Bureau, Chalaka Gajabahu. Dilan Aryavansa, one of the very good ambassadors of Sri Lanka and running the Sri Lankan Airlines business as well in Australia, New Zealand, New York, Caribbean, you name it, he has many GSAs for Sri Lankan. He's doing something right. And also, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, it gives me great pleasure to be here. When I saw that A to Z video, if you really looked at it, it says we are open. And once you come to Sri Lanka, you'll come back for more. Sri Lanka is an addiction. It's an addiction about hospitality. It's about the culture. It's about the heritage. It's about the culinary feast that we have in Sri Lanka. It's all you name it. Sri Lanka is a beautiful, like Chalaka says, is all in one capsule. I need to first explain why we are here. We first went to Perth, then went to Sydney, and then came to Melbourne. Melbourne being our strongest stronghold. There's many Sri Lankans, and I always believe they can act as ambassadors for Sri Lanka. Because you meet so many Australians, please talk about the beauty of our country and start getting people to come into Sri Lanka. Why I say this is, when I figured that Bali was being a bit naughty to the Australians, I thought we had an opening. So we realized, we spoke to our boards, the promotional bureau, and it said Australia should be in a list of promotional countries. So we're looking at new markets. Sri Lanka is predominantly, was a European favorite hotspot destination, especially for the UK and France and Germany and the rest of the European countries. But we realized your winter season, I would like to call Sri Lanka a 365 day of the season because it doesn't have a season. But it's somewhat low season for us is your winter season. That's your season. So we thought this really works well if we analyze the analytical side of it, that Australians do travel to Thailand, do travel to Bali, do travel to Maldives, but they have been doing the same for over and over and over and over years of time. But look at Sri Lanka. It's just a place where there's something for everyone who's going to travel. So what we wanted to understand was we're supposed to come back in October in a big way. We want to get a massive ballroom. We want to get a B2B session for the whole day. We are about 30 to 40 DMCs. Representatives will be here, meet the agents. You can start the business up. And I'm also the lands minister, and I can offer you some land, whoever wants to invest in Sri Lanka. If you really see the south, you hardly find any spot that locals can buy because already most of the foreigners have already invested on villas. And villas is something that is really big in Sri Lanka. And private villas where you go to Arugamba, you go to Mirissa, the surfing areas, it's all taken over by a lot of foreign investors. But we still have your lands, and we can help you over to build the beautiful country back in now. So let's say in October, if we are to come back, I wanted my tourism officials to understand what kind of a package we should offer the Australians. Hence why we're here. And we wanted to have these 3 networking sessions in Perth, Sydney, and Melbourne, just to get your input on how we should get Sri Lanka branded in Australia, because we're going for a massive global campaign. We are going to have our thematic campaign coming in October, where we'll have a check-in campaign which starts in August. We will launch it. We want to launch and go big in Australia. We want us to be present in Australia. So how do we do that? Is why we're here, just to figure it out, get the product right, and then go back, get to our drawing boards and come up in October in a big bang. So you can sell for your next winter season. Sri Lanka should be a destination. One thing I realized with my trip, and today is the last day, and tomorrow morning I head out to Sri Lanka, what I realized was the air seat capacity has to be increased. Sri Lankan is a bit too expensive, unless Dylan wants to put his own money and reduce it. I don't know how they can do that. But Sri Lankan, the CG is also trying his best to get another slot in to operate 2 daily flights from Sri Lanka and from Melbourne. So that will actually open things up. And most of the travelers on the Sri Lankan Airlines is VFR travelers visiting family and relatives. We need tourists coming in, at least 25%, so we need to get the seating done at Sri Lankan Airlines, which we are at the moment doing. Let me just tell you something about Sri Lanka. How resilient we are is the best example is that A to Z video. This is all within last July to last June, how we converted Sri Lanka. When I took oaths, as you know, I was, one of my Sri Lankan friends will know, I was an opposition member. There's a huge revolution that happened in Sri Lanka. It was the darkest period of our history. But I took a personal challenge, and I came out of an opposition to the government when the president, who was the only member in parliament, ended up being the president, to support him because we were in a crisis. My first job when I took oaths, houses were getting burned, politicians were getting hammered. I was one of the people who started a revolution, but I went into the government. It was a very risky time. I had to take a small car, hide myself, and took oaths. But I'm very proud to say where we are today is just, if you really go back within 365 days, it's an unbelievable experience of how we converted. My first job, first day when I went into office, I got all these chairmen. I had a very good group of people who came and supported me voluntarily. Sanat Jayasuri is our brand ambassador. He has not taken a cent from us for promoting Sri Lanka. He's a cricketer. Cricketers are very expensive these days, but he did not. And unfortunately, he was supposed to be here. His mother fell ill. She's 80 years old, so he had to rush back home. So I hope all's well with him, and we've been in touch. And he wanted me to mention that was the reason, but he will be back. He will be doing some promotional stuff together with the Australians. Today, Sri Lanka is back on track. IMF has bailed us out, and we have done our debt restructuring. In September, Sri Lanka will be formally taken out of the bankrupt status and to a normal running country. So we can be proud. And as I said, when we took over the first day in office, what we had to do was send the last tourists out to find fuel for them to get to the airport. All the airlines stopped flying into Sri Lanka, and it was a horrific time to promote Sri Lanka. What we did first, we did the right things. We straight went into India. We asked them, there's a high middle class population. We got people like MasterCard, Visa to sponsor us. They did videos for us, promotional stuff, and all of that worked well for us. And Indians, I have to thank them because they're done marvelously well over the period of time, and they're the #1 arrivals for Sri Lanka at the moment, and they accumulate up to about 35% of our tourists. And mind you, Indians nowadays really spend, and they're a good market to have. We have more than 82 flights connecting to India for a week, so there's a huge air seat capacity, so we can market it, and Sri Lankan Airlines have done wonders in getting them down. Then what we did was we wanted a campaign. We wanted to identify long-haul destinations are a bit tough these days. To check the tourism, what they do now is regional travel, mostly regional travel. These long-haul destinations are a bit costly because of the airline costs. But what I see for Australia is there's so much connection that we can make. There's so much of products we can offer. I was talking to a friend of mine last night over dinner, and I was saying there's so much of Sri Lankans living here. I even met a few companies today, and I asked them, why not you start, most of our digital platforms, now the OTT platforms are what's very popular. I said to start, I can't still figure out a name for this, but you can send your mother or Sri Lanka. It's domestic tourism for us as well. Why not send them from a rural area where your parents are to Colombo, to Hilton, to Shangri-La, to Radisson, to ITC, any of these branded hotels for 3-4 days as a gift to your parents. The car will come in, give them some flowers, pick them up, take to this 5-star luxury. I myself studied in Melbourne for a while, so I remember whenever I go to see a nice place, I remember of my parents, and I want them to experience it the same way that I did. So there's so much of things that innovatively we can do. These boys, the guy down, the concierge was a Sri Lankan boy, and I'm sure he will love to send his parents. Maximum $500 will be nothing for him, for a good getaway for your parents for about a week in Sri Lanka. And simple stuff that you can do, and those are innovative things that we can actually start. What we also did was this influencer program. We did a massive influencer program from many other countries. We got them. We realized the value of the social media. That's where the trend sets in. And we've signed up even with Nas Daily. He's going to do 3 videos about Sri Lanka, why you should invest in Sri Lanka. Number 2 is waterfalls of Sri Lanka, and another video I can't remember. He's doing 3 videos which on investment, waterfalls, and the craziest train ride. He's doing 3 videos which will minimum get us 50 million views. So these are things that we've done right. And starting from August, we're going to have a calendar event in Sri Lanka. In August, we want to do something similar to the Edinburgh tattoo event. Sri Lanka military is very strong. We have more than 400 brass bands, the Sri Lanka Navy, Air Force, Army, and police. So we're getting together all of them, and we're inviting few bands around from the world for the 3-day brass band concert that's happening in August. In October, we are branding Sri Lanka as a diving destination with addicts. Sri Lanka has more than 142 shipwrecks, and we have water. I always keep telling my Sri Lankan friends, how many of us do even swim? Very less. We're an island nation, and we want to brand Sri Lanka as this island nation. So this will happen. We're in a transformation. You go to Bali on the beach, it's happening, partying, everything. Sri Lanka has it, but we need to get it branded properly. So we are in the process of doing it. In October, we are going to brand Sri Lanka as a beach destination. That sun and fun experience, and the water sports, everything will be launched in there. Our scuba diving to the corals, amazing beaches we have, and we need to make use of it. So October will be completely on that. There's going to be a huge beach volleyball tournament, DJ carnivals, all happening. In November, we are going to showcase Sigiriya as a backdrop, and there's going to be a massive fashion show, international fashion show, led by the Colombo Fashion Week. Colombo Fashion Week is in the top 20 fashion, Whatever. So they are in the top 20 of the fashion shows and organizations. So they're on the top 20. They are going to do an international massive event in November. December will start 1st February. So 1st December, it's going to be party time in Sri Lanka. All of the Sri Lankans who are here knows 31st night in Sri Lanka is crazy. And that whole, it leads up to that. There'll be so much of carnival, musical stuff happening. In January, we are having the Galle Literary Festival alongside the Jaipur Festival. We're doing it 1 week before, so anybody coming in can come for the Galle Literary Festival and then go to the Jaipur Literary Festival as well. And this will work very well. It's not going to be just in Galle Fort. We're going to have in every town, Hikkaduwa up to Mirissa, every town will have an event. There'll be musical shows, there'll be a reggae show, there'll be a rock concert, all of that happening. In August, in January 26, Andrea Braccioli is performing at Colombo Port City. So there's so much of events. There are ballet events happening, international ballet events happening in Sri Lanka, so on and so forth. Every month, Sri Lanka will have a program. So this is what we wanted to share. This is what we wanted to get out in the world. And we wanted new markets. So Australia is one of the first new markets we came into. We want to go into Japan because Sri Lanka wellness is in the next level right now. Our meditation, our yoga retreats, the positivity, the sun, what you need is all in Sri Lanka. It's a blessed nation. It's a blessed island. So anyone comes there will come back for more. That's what we realize. 33% of our travelers are repeaters. So we're doing a Pico Trail. We will show you that video as the last video. In this, European Union and USAID funded this project. It's a 21-day project. They start from the Hantana Hills. They go up to Alla. then it's all walking, and you see the scenic beauty, the culture, the tea plantation. We are converting line rooms where the Indian estate workers worked in Sri Lanka as bed hotels, like homestay experience. For the high end, there are the villas, because all these tea estates have bungalows. And those bungalows, now we're trying to get investors to invest, and that culture will. So what we also realize, it's 21 days, nobody's going to walk 21 days. So this is the whole strategy behind it. Was they do 4 days. They do 4 days in the beach, or they go to the cultural triangle, or they go to Kandy or Aurelia. But 4 days on the mountain, then they come back, let's say 10 days average, an Australian would go out, they'll do only stage one. When they come into this cold weather, when they're on the computer, dark, gloomy day, they'll keep thinking about Sri Lanka and wanted to go and do the next session. So we wanted them to keep coming back. So that is our whole attitude towards promoting Sri Lanka. Well, one of the other things that we have done right is we got the domestic air transportation back up and running in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has beautiful locations. We have the best golf courses. If you see, the Royal Golf Club in Colombo is one of the best golf courses in the world. When you go up to Aurelia, there's the Aurelia golf course. We have one in Shangri-La in Hambantota, all 18-hole golf courses, and in Trinco, China Bay. We wanted them to get to A to B very fast. So we realized we got the seaplanes, we got the other smaller aircrafts flying into all these places, scheduled, started from this month, July. So I'm very, very happy and very pleased to see, and we have few helicopter operators to travel. Borden Barrett, the famous all-black rugby player, came with his wife and spent the honeymoon in Sri Lanka. So there's so much of connection that we are making. So sports tourism, medical tourism. I know dental is very expensive here. Sri Lanka is very, very good and relatively very, very cheap. These are things, there's so much of opportunity if you look at it. So one of the first things that we're trying to do also is to start a direct flight to Perth. Perth to Colombo will be only about 6 to 6.5 hours. And I mean, what better place than Sri Lanka to go for your next holiday? You want wildlife will be there. So there's lots of opportunity for investment. We just got 2 companies from Dubai to do skydiving schools in Sri Lanka and hot air ballooning from Cappadocia in Turkey. So they have put 3 balloons, hot air balloons, and they're going to put more than 10 in the coming months. And one of the attractions that I wanted to say was we wanted to have an aerial view of the wildlife. So in Yala, we will start a hot air ballooning with a champagne breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. So these are things that where you add the value addition, because average spender in Sri Lanka right now is $200. That's not going to do good. But I don't want the Australians to mix up or price us as a cheap destination. It should be very unique. Sri Lanka should be a unique destination. We don't want to be an alternative to Bangkok or Bali, because Sri Lanka is unique on its own. And I want to keep it that way, because if you do keep bringing it down, I mean, I know to Bali, you can go for $1,000, $1,200 for a 7-day trip. Sri Lanka, the problem is the hotels won't be that expensive. But if you want to add up the value addition, you can go up on the chain. But it's the airline. The air ticket cost is what's eating us up. So we will go back. We will fight hard on this. We'll try to get more airlines. I met Qantas. We went and met the top people at Qantas. We met the Jetstar. So we're trying to, Qantas is having a problem on their own with only having 55 odd aircrafts operating on the international sector, not the domestic sector. So they are finding it really hard to allocate another flight. But at least a seasonal flight is what we're requesting. Sri Lankan is also on a restructuring process. I hope it goes well for Sri Lanka, because it's one of the IMF conditions. So I love the Sri Lankan brand. I really, when I get onto my flight, it's actually home. It's just 10 hours, wouldn't even feel it for me, because you feel that whole home atmosphere and the Sri Lankan warmth and the hospitality is all in there. So hopefully Sri Lankan survives in a best restructuring manner, but the country is on the right track and the right progress. So ideal time once again to get a small plot of land or invest in Sri Lanka, because that's the next hotspot destination. If you see all the numbers, all the bookings coming in, it's coming thick and fast. And 2024, if you see the forecast, right now our best year was in 2018. It was 2.3 million tourists. Last year, with all the controversies after we took over, within 5 months, we were able to bring over 500,000, and it ended up on a total of 719,000 tourists only. But we have already covered the 719,000 within the 6.5 months that we have passed the last for 2023. Our forecast is by 2030 we have 4 million tourists, and I know we can get there. Rooms are coming up, as I said. Hilton Conrad brand is opening up in Yala. Yala, they sell average at $700. All the hotels, Wild Coast, we have Uga, China Hats, all other hotels go on average that way. So we have the high end to support it. We are developing 3 marinas, marina in Colombo, Galle and Trinco. That's another area where we can really improve. The private charters keep coming in to Sri Lanka. We have given them landing free in Sri Lanka for private charters who are coming in and bringing the crowds. So there's so much one-on-one we can discuss. We have a fantastic Consular General who understands it, who has a passion. He himself in Sri Lanka had a, what's it called, Millennium Elephant Foundation. So we have lots of volunteers go in there, lots of kids go there. They stay for about a month with the elephants, so he understands how to support a tourist and how to build it up. So I've been there, I've seen it, and it's an amazing place. There's so much of youngsters. They have to be on a list to come in there and get an entire experience of bathing an elephant, feeding an elephant, baby elephants, all of that. So it's not chained. It's not animal cruelty. It's a foundation that has been led to look after elephants. So it's good to understand. It's good to work with a person who understands tourism, and that's what I was trying to explain. So I would not go any further. We have a small Q&A session. I would love you to give us some suggestions or to tell us what we should do right when coming into Australia in October, how we should brand Sri Lanka. We're going under a massive campaign around the world, and that will start in October as well. So we needed to get this right, and Australian market to be right, and understand what your request is also. And to all my Sri Lankan friends who are here, please start acting as Sri Lankan ambassadors. Try promoting Sri Lanka, because the access that you all have to your workplaces, access you have to your friends at your sporting places is immense. Even in the universities, there could be so many programs that we can organize. Sri Lankans and Australians have one thing in common. It's our body with sports. Any sport we would like to do. Australians are the same, whether it's volleyball, netball, cricket. The passion always remains the same. Once again, Sri Lanka is a really salient nation. I always say, when we are put in a final with Australia, we definitely beat them. We might get beaten 5-0 when we are back at home, but Sri Lankans, when it comes to the crunch, performs well. And I'm quite certain that in tourism also, we'll do the same. And we need your support. And as always, keep loving Sri Lanka, and the Sri Lankans love you back. Thank you so much, and enjoy the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, the Honourable Minister for Tourism and Land in Sri Lanka, Mr. Harin Fernando. You know, when you are chilling on the beach, having a cool baby, and then you think you want to go watch a game of cricket. Now, you can't do this in Bali, and you can't do this in Indonesia. Great places to visit, by the way. I've been there. But if you're in Sri Lanka, a 2-3 hour train journey, bus journey, you could hire your own vehicle. You could be at the beaches in the eastern part of the country, go on for a surf in the morning, suddenly just decided, you know what, go watch a game of cricket. There you do. Get on a train, get on a bus, a couple hours later, you're sitting at the stadium watching a game of cricket. Or rugby, or come to Colombo for a party. You know what? You could do all this in Sri Lanka, which you can't do in certain other parts of the world. Just saying, just putting it out there, you know. 30 nautical miles from the coast of Sri Lanka is one of the most natural formations of dolphins and whales in Sri Lanka. A lot of people don't know this, but books have been written for centuries, you know, by merchants and seafarers who travel to Sri Lanka, being a natural port island, on their trades. And they've always written about the mermaids sometimes, and the dolphins and the whales. that you can go and watch when you're in Sri Lanka. Cricket, whales, surfing, the oceans. In a while we'll show a video about the tea trails, all that and much, much more. We're going to open up the forum now to the Honourable Minister Harin Fernando, Mr. Charlika Gajabahu, and of course Mr. Samarasinghe to chair this panel for any Q&A, questions rather, that the guests have to address towards the guests. Thank you.
We are open for suggestions as well. It's not only questions, both sides.
Recommendations, where to go, what to do?
Just one thing that I forgot to mention. Sri Lanka could be used as a stopover destination as well. Many of people go to Europe visiting family and relatives. Why not stop over in Sri Lanka for 4 nights, 3 nights? We'll make it the best experience that you can. Mind you, Emirates fly to Colombo 5 times daily. Qatar Airways fly into Colombo 5 times daily. You know the accessibility Qatar and Emirates has, so Sri Lanka could be a hotspot place where you stop over, have a good sun and fun, and then go back to UK or Paris or Rome or Frankfurt. That's another thing that you can actually start promoting. That was in my mind as well, to really experience that option. Because of the frequencies, Turkish Airlines is back in Sri Lanka, and they're even looking at a possibility of connecting a flight to Australia via Sri Lanka. That might really work for us as well. So we're working with Turkish Airlines on that, just to update you on. Yes.
Tell us about your hotspot in Sri Lanka and personal experience. You talk about all corporate level, but just tell us in layman terms.
My favorite place is the mountains, because I love the cold. So mountains are my hotspot. So I like Haputale, Alla, Nurelia, that region. Yes, madam.
I recently went to Sri Lanka in April. I'm just wondering, when you're getting more tourists coming into the national parks, will you cap the amount of people and jeeps? There was a lot of jeeps in Yala at the time. I'm just wondering, is that something that you're thinking of?
There should be regulation on it. We on a technical committee that has been appointed to really study on how we are going to manage the crowds. It's unfortunate sometimes, because I want the wildlife to be also very free, and sometimes these jeeps really crowd themselves inside these wildlife parks. But we are on the process of working a strategy out of it. So this is one of the reasons that I thought you can have value addition. You don't have to go on a jeep. You can go on a balloon and then see, like in Tanzania, you can add up another $100 or $200. But it's a different kind of an experience. You add the value addition, you get the crowd sourced a little bit, because sometimes even a high network client will have to go through that same process of the jeep, which takes time. He would not like that. And we have lots of cruises coming to Hambantota, and they do 1 night or 2 nights, and when about 1,000 or 2,000 tourists come in from a cruise, and they all come into Yala, that's a real bit of a headache, even for the wild. So we are trying to control it. We're trying to space it out. So even when a cruise comes, what we do is we send half of them to Wilpattu, half of them to Yala, and we make the changes. So we are quite concerned about it, but we're working on it. And Sri Lanka is on sustainable tourism right now. We are working on ecotourism on a big way. Zero carbon. Some hotels have really implemented this project. Most of the hotels have gone into solar completely. So working things are on the side of that is also working. So. Yes, sir.
Stuart Crelsham narrates expeditions, part of reconnaissance this along Sri Lanka. I noticed pre-COVID, the quality of staff in hotels and in the industry was pretty good. Going back there last year, I saw a a reduction in the quality. So the question is what is the industry doing to attract, train and retain quality staff for the industry?
Well, that is an issue because of the crisis. We had a lot of people, the experienced people, were going out of the country. But then, along with our hotel school and the ministry, we are developing new programs to recruit people. Actually, there was a pilot project that was launched. We are getting from 25 districts, 100 each, which will be done on housekeeping and culinary. Yeah, 100 each. So we have to fast track and get it done. But to be very honest, at a senior level, we are bringing in people, experienced people from other countries, especially from India, to bridge that gap. We have no other choice. But at the same time, on a positive, when Sri Lankans go and work out of the country, because that's our number one revenue forex generator, which is foreign remittances. That's number one, and tourism is number two. It works both ways, a double-edged knife, or in a good way.
Yeah, actually, just to add on to it, we were quite concerned with this particular matter, but the passion the Sri Lankan people have, I know many in this room who are Sri Lankans, must be itching to go back to Sri Lanka. I mean, if I were living in, I would itch to go back to Sri Lanka and settle down. So it is a crisis that happened in Sri Lanka, different reasons, different projections that people make on their own that they have moved in, but many are coming back. Moment things are settling in, and I see that because the top chefs have not left in Sri Lanka, top end other staff has not. It's the middle that went away. So I mean, there's a positive side of it also. It gives you opportunity for some youngsters to perform, and I see that very well happening. And we did a crash course also. We did an 8-week crash course, and all our hotel schools, we have more than 9 in the country, all are over capacity. So there's a huge interest to get into the industry, and it's working.
I have a question just want to put to the board because I've been in hospitality in Sri Lanka and I've worked there for some time. I just want to understand the rationale now because I understand that Sri Lanka is moving away from being a cheap destination. You know, we want to attract quality tourism. But what the understanding of now, for example, an Australian, coming to Sri Lanka, the visa is now $120.
No, 50.
Is it?
50. 50, 60. Yeah. I think across the board it's 50 for the SAARC countries. It was 20. That is India and all of these countries. But we're doing a pilot project. Finish your question, then I'll answer. Sorry.
I just want to understand, Honourable Minister, the rationale, and the visa charge and things like that.
See, I've been arguing about that. I'm on your same view. I think we should not charge visa fees. We should open Sri Lanka. It's just a trigger point, It's a thing that, you don't need visa, you can just go to Sri Lanka. This is something that we're working, and I've been fighting with the government or in the cabinet about it. But they've just given the nod to do it for the SAARC countries, free. But you need to register on ETA because we needed to have, for security reasons, of who comes into Sri Lanka, who does not. I mean, these are statistically very important and on security basis as well. So we're doing that, but I am sure than paying a $50 visa, you spend much more in Sri Lanka if you really give the product right. So I'm on the verge of working, and one good thing is the current president understands tourism very well. It's one of his pet projects. He always likes to contribute to tourism. So I believe I could convince him, and we're working on it. I got the first step right, so SAARC countries are there because the numbers have proven it to us with the Indians. So we did it for India, more or less. China is number 3 for Sri Lanka right now, and I'm trying to do it to China also because they're good spenders. As I said, Sri Lanka has backpacking trail as well, which is one of the very, very large communities of tourists who comes into Sri Lanka. So we're not going to completely go away from it, but we want to make sure that we are not just a destination. I mean, you see Maldives average spend is $700 just for the beach because they have all the brands present there. So this is another thing that we are working on, getting all the brands right and coming in Sri Lanka. So they'll start marketing themselves as well and getting their seat capacity. So we're quite confident things are falling into place, and these will all come in. Yes, sir.
Talk about by 2030 4 million people coming into the country, and do you have the capacity with the hotels?
Very good question. So what we have right now is 40,000 rooms, which is similar to or a little bit over Maldives, but that's a formal sector. We have an informal sector of another 50,000. That is homestays, guest houses, etc. So that's why I said we're not going to run away from that backpacking trail, that market, homestays, long stays, that, but we're increasing capacity. As I said, ITC, which is a big brand in India, is opening their first hotel out of India, is in Sri Lanka. They're opening it in October. I think it's a 400-room hotel, so it's massive. As I said, Hilton Conrad brand is opening in August. The starting price started off at $1,200, so it's 48 villas and high exclusive villas, and Conrad brand itself markets it for us, so it works that way. But yes, as I said, I'm the lands minister. Have a chat. I will try and find you some places, make some investment, make some hotels. We have some luxury boutique villas that can be given. There's loads of opportunities. So we will be starting a lab in Sri Lanka, which will be a 6-week project initiated by the president. Any investor can just walk in. All the approvals will be given within 6 weeks. Even if certain project that bring needs some legislation, we will do that. AG will be sitting on that. I will be. There's only 3 sectors we're going to go into: manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism. So those 3 labs will really work. It's done by a Malaysian company who's facilitating it, all of this. It's a former finance minister of Malaysia and Indonesia who sits on that board. So we know exactly by the end of the year what investments will come into Sri Lanka, how much job creations will happen in Sri Lanka. And we want to be a debt-free country by the 100 years of our independence, which is in 2048. That's a vision that is being driven right now. We're not going to say just 5 years, 10 years, but we had to strategically come out. In 1947, we lended money to the British as well. But unfortunately, after gaining the independence, politicians have screwed it up, including myself. But that's how it goes. But I hope that we get it right, because we fell right onto the bottom, and it's just getting up from there. So.
We can see a lot of things planned to promote tourism, which is very good. But another form of tourism is retirement tourism, that a lot of people here might end up in Sri Lanka to spend their better part of their life. So is there anything else planned for that?
I don't know how you got that, because it's back in my back of my mind. I wanted to tell all of you that, Sri Lanka has the best caregivers. I was telling somebody today at a meeting, I was saying, why don't you start promoting this? We will support you with all the content. From the flight, getting out and getting them back on the flight, we will have the caregivers, because Sri Lanka, I was a former foreign employment minister as well. And we started this program because, like Chalaka said, our number 1 revenue for the income for the government is by foreign remittances. And we were sending actually cheap labor out of Sri Lanka mainly to the Middle East. But we signed in 2018, if I remember right, with Japan for 10,000 jobs, and mostly it's caregivers. And then we started this whole project of training and doing this training. So in London, we have got this. I think even in Australia, there's a huge demand for this. So what we're trying to do is, I was saying, we'll get some investor to do a real proper retirement home, maybe 2 or 3 locations, but that will be 1 month, 2 months, or 60 days trip. So it's a long stay. They will come on a long stay. It's a niche market, but I feel it'll really work. It'll really work if we get this product and the marketing right. They're tired with the cold. The retirement age, they would definitely love to even go and spend some time in a nice, cool weather where it's soothing to your body. So the yoga retreats, the meditation, wellness, Ayurveda, all can get involved, and yeah, it's a massive product that we can offer. Why don't you invest on that?
Can I add one thing? Another category which I forgot to mention was digital nomads. We are launching a separate category altogether. A new campaign is coming out, special for a country like Australia. It's a niche market for us right now, but it can grow. So we are coming up with a special project and a visa program as well for 3 to 6 to 9 months, even 12 months as well for digital nomads. So that's another area, a segment that we are looking at, which is, I think, Australia, even New Zealand can be a very key market. Yep.
Just to add on to that, working remotely, I see many people still work from home. Why don't you, the video showed that work remotely, why don't you work in a lush green outset? The thinking power, your productivity levels really increases. It's not that cold, you don't have to go out and just be covering yourself, but be in the beach, your thoughts will keep flowing into your mind. So yeah, that's another real option that you can really work on, working remotely in Sri Lanka, because I was also the telecommunication minister. I'm proud to say Sri Lanka has 5G, and we have fiber optic enability in the entire country currently. There are more than 5 SME cables that connects to the world. We are one of the fastest and the cheapest when it comes to the internet.
We'll open up for 2 more questions. Got
yes,
a question at the back.
So the one thing we haven't talked about is the food of Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
It is one of the great underrated foods in the world. I do a food tours to Sri Lanka. I've just come back 4 days ago from London here. And it is one of those things that people come over here. I teach them to cook the food over there, and they come over here and they're continually looking for shops to buy the products and to make hoppers and to make coffee roti and to make curries and things like that. I think it is one of those things that are really, the culinary tourism is really underrated when it comes to Sri Lanka. We have some of the food in the world that is unparalleled to anything else out there. And we really need to find a way to tap into that a little bit more.
Very good question, very good suggestion as well, sir. And just to enlighten you, we have a chef guild in Sri Lanka, which are the top chefs who are working all around the world, and we have a connection working with them. We recently did one in France, showcasing Sri Lankan culinary festival. These are things that we can organize. CG can get this down. We can have the. So once we start getting into Australia, all of these things will fall into place. But if anybody wants to buy all the Sri Lankan spices, I'm sure in Dandenong you have few shops that you can go and get it. I remember myself going there. And honestly, I'm just dying to get onto Sri Lankan Airlines and have kiribat tomorrow morning, because they offer a kiribat when they go off. So I can imagine, and Sri Lankan culinary experience is a must-have. Thank you, sir.
I'd just like to add one more point. I'm a huge MasterChef fan, MasterChef Australia fan. I think quite a few Sri Lankans have ended up in the past few years. And season 2 junior MasterChef winner, that little girl from Sri Lankan heritage, she cooked her grandmother's crab curry, if I'm not mistaken, and she won the finals. So there's a long story. I was talking to CG this morning to create a program, maybe with celebrities, and there's of course Peter Kurvitra, as you saw as a brand ambassador for Sri Lankan Airlines as well. So there are a lot of projects, and it is part of our global campaign. Like I said, we are creating the umbrella brand, the DNA, where Sri Lanka stands for. Because if you ask who Sri Lanka is, nobody can tell who Sri Lanka is. If you say incredible India, it's incredible India, truly Malaysia, amazing Thailand. But we have not positioned ourselves. So that's first create the mother brand, the DNA, and then create the categories. And culinary is a one major category going forward. That's it. Thank you.
Last one. Any more questions? Last.
Yes.
Honourable Minister, does the government of Sri Lanka have a position on gambling tourism?
Of course, Sri Lanka is huge on that. Currently, we have 3 operators who have the license. Cinnamon Life is doing a massive project. Actually, they recruited the Marina Bay Sands GM as their GM in Sri Lanka. That's been pushed, and that's Indians and Chinese. Why they're number 1 and number 3 is because they come for gambling. And we are even going to have an offshore vessel that we will have a different experience, which in the coming months. Port City is a massive project that is being started. They're having a casino. They're building a casino and a duty-free shops. So that's to get the shopping tourism around into Sri Lanka. So all of this are happening. I believe a good 5 years in Sri Lanka, it'll convert everything, right?
Thank you, Minister. Harin Fernando, the Honourable Minister for Tourism and Lands in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lanka Consulate General in Melbourne, Mr. Sandit Samarasinha, and of course the Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Mr. Charlie Kakajabao. Thank you for that. Thank you. Now, I think the Minister in his speech mentioned something about the Pico Trail. It is the newest immersive experience for visitors who come to Sri Lanka, which is a 300-kilometre trail, curated long-distance walking trail through the central highlands of Sri Lanka, and one of Asia's best-kept secrets. This is a 22-stage walking trail which takes you through some of the finest ecology and mountain terrain in south of Asia. As you begin your journey in Kandy, which is on top, make your way to Nuwara across, passing through Habutale, Hatton and Ella. And reading through it sounds like the Minister's personal experience, given that he loves the cool climate. All these places he mentioned is part of that trail. It's the first of its kind and, of course, a bucket list experience of a lifetime. Short video on the Pico Trail, trekking trail in Sri Lanka.
Before I came to Sri Lanka, I was just in this state where I needed to go somewhere warm and beautiful and to feel at peace. And that's what happens when I get to Sri Lanka. The Pico Trail, it was definitely somewhere that you can just walk and inhale and feel. It makes you feel light. Just feel free. It's just beautiful. The surroundings are absolutely beautiful. Having come from London, I highly, highly recommend the Pico Trail. Having worked so hard in the rat race, the freedom and the solace that you will find pretty incredible. The Sri Lankan people, there's an immediate connection and warmth to the locals here in Sri Lanka. There's definitely something very, very magical about this place. Here, it's just easy and free and unspoiled. I think anyone will find peace in the Pico Trail.
The newest immersive experience in Sri Lanka. Ladies Consulate General, they're all available for your questions tonight. And of course, anything that you wanted to ask, you can ask them now. Any suggestions, they're open for that as well. Once again, thank you very much. And as you're having dinner, there will be a couple of other dance items organized for you as well as the night goes along. Thank you very much.